Awesome. Thank you, Kier. So thanks for having me, and thank you for coming today. It's been really interesting actually putting together this presentation because, as Kier said, like this is only the second really time that we've done a conference like this. And as I was thinking about what to really cover and learning about really that whole idea of flipping the narrative to have the partners and the community run most of what is today and have us give a little peek into Shopify, I wanted to talk a bit about not just like what we say in our marketing around the partner platform, but what we actually talk about internally when we talk about our partner platform, when we talk about when we build the product and how important partner platform is to that product, to what Shopify is to our merchants. So today I'm going to cover a few things. I'm going to go quickly over sort of my background and how I ended up at Shopify, what I do there, and then we're going to take a look at actually who we're building for, and that's at Shopify, that is both for partners and the merchants, and for partners, the merchants that you build for. Third, I'm actually going to take you through why the partner platform is super strategic to Shopify. I'm actually even going to show slides that I presented internally just a month ago, just to give you a glimpse of, because I think it's very important that we're very transparent about how our ecosystem works together and how we actually can accomplish the same things together. Fourth, going to dabble a little bit and walk the little line of the public company a little bit and talk about where Shopify is going to go in the future. And last, just got a couple nuggets just based on what I've seen in data and through experience just looking at which partners have been successful in our ecosystem. Just a few suggestions here and there. Cool? Okay, so my background, it's been a bit of a random walk of a career. When I think about where I started my career, it actually is playing poker. Back in university, I was doing like finance and whatnot as an undergrad degree, and I took a couple years off actually to just play full-time poker. So I'd play in the World Series, I went all over the world and played in live tournaments and whatnot, and the reason I think about this is mostly because that's actually the beginning of sort of my own entrepreneurial business, sort of my entrepreneurial muscle, or the ability or the want to sort of earn for myself. Did that for a couple years, then I realized it was a very terrible lifestyle, playing 12 hours a day on like 10 screens, very tough job. So I eventually finished my degree and I ended up working at a company called Kraft Foods. It's a pretty big global company. So what I was doing there is I built financial models that sort of predicted what consumers were going to be buying in the next quarter or the next few quarters. So a real example is like how many Oreos would someone buy or the US market buy in the next quarter, and then we would buy sugar and wheat on the commodities market to be able to actually get the right amount of raw materials to make that. Little intersection with friends here in the UK. During the time I was there, we acquired Cadbury, which I know was a very loved brand here in the UK, and I apologize for that little spite of capitalism. But I think we took care of the brand, and actually 2 years later, we got acquired by a private equity firm, and they blew up the whole company. So all is fair. From there is actually where I completely changed my career and forked into technology. So this could be a really long story, but I'm going to cut it super short. I sort of saw what my career was going to be at Kraft, and I could project what it would be for the next like 30 years. So a friend of mine, we started to just like take an entrepreneurial leap and started to build what ended up being a platform for YouTube musicians to monetize their concerts. So they would allow fans on YouTube to vote for crazy things like go skydiving with them before the show or take them for a date before the show. And we gave them a back end where they plot out their tours in the back, and then they could sell tickets on Facebook and Twitter. So we did that for about 2.5 years. That's where I learned everything the basis of everything that I know today about technology and entrepreneurialism. And we eventually sold the company to a company called SFX Entertainment in the US, in New York, and they run things like Coachella and Tomorrowland. So they acquired us to use the product for DJs. And so we went with the acquirer, and we integrated the product, and it completely flopped because DJs don't actually want to spend time with people. And that's obvious in hindsight, but it sounded really good at the time. From there, I said, okay, do I go back to finance, or what do I do now? And that's where I started to really get into more proper tech. So I became a product manager at a company called FreshBooks. Some of you may actually use it. It's pretty big in the SMB space around service-based businesses, so it helps people invoice, do quotes and estimates with their clients and whatnot. Spent 3 years there, and I was a director of product there, so I worked on all the payments and mobile products. And then, full circle, that's where I ended up at Shopify. the agency that built one of the prototypes for Toonsy was acquired by Shopify, and that's how I knew one of the founders of that agency, and that's how I ended up there. So that was about 2.5 years ago. So at Shopify, I am a director of product on platform, and I work, the teams that are in my group tend to work on these these product areas. Shopify is really, really huge, so we don't do it all, but this is a glimpse. So sales channels, the actual platform itself. So we recently went open with it at Unite, but all the partnerships we've done with Facebook and Pinterest and like House and all those great commerce companies have been built off this platform. The App Store itself, so some product teams in my group manage the App Store. The API, the documentation, what a lot of you all use here, that's in my group as well. And what I know a lot of you use is the Partners dashboard, which got a nice refresh after Unite, but we're not done with that yet. And then the last two things are the literal capabilities of applications inside of Shopify, both in web and in mobile. That's what some of our other teams work on. Last bit about me is I actually run a bunch of stores. So this is even before Shopify. I always love a few side businesses. So these are the ones I have currently running today. I sell some smart mirrors online. So those are basically like you put a panel behind, and you can show like the weather in your calendar behind a one or two-way mirror, so you can see yourself in the morning and show like your information or get your day started. Second is a sort of little clothing company that just makes nice illustrations of food and puts them on clothes. Nothing too inspired. And then the last is I also sell random stuff on Amazon. Funny fact, in 2016, I was the #1 seller of selfie sticks on Amazon.ca. So I have a 70% chance if you own a selfie stick in Canada that it's from my company. So I've had a lot of fun doing that, and it really makes it a really rewarding job to work at Shopify because I get to use the product that I'm building all the time. Cool. So as I thought about this talk, something really came to fruition multiple times, and it's sort of this whole idea that we're all really deeply aligned. And I know that like you've heard Shopify say these things before, but I really want everyone in the room to feel and understand that we see that inside the same way. So when I say deeply aligned, Shopify's platform and its ecosystem really comprises of 3 groups. So the Shopify, and that's Shopify the company. There are partners here in the room, and then there are the merchants that we both serve. So when I think about these 3 groups and how we actually align together with our day-to-day, there are kind of 3 major intersections, right? So between Shopify, the company, and its merchants, our focus with them, 100%, is we just want them to sell more, and we want to make entrepreneurship easier. That is what they want. They want to sell more. They want to run a business a lot easier than it is today. And for us, that's exactly how our business works. We make our business, and our business model is based off 2 things. It's how much sells through our platform, and then the secondly is how many merchants are on our platform. So this is really tightly aligned, and one of the greatest things that work in Shopify is that the customers that we build the product for are interested in exactly what we're interested in as a company. Between partners and Shopify the company, we are actually creating value by helping these merchants be successful. Right? That is where you all deliver value and create value for yourselves, and that's how Shopify also creates value. And the last part, though, was kind of interesting, and it's not really, how I'm going to articulate it here is not really between you and merchants, but rather how Shopify sees merchants and partners actually as being more similar than maybe some suspect. And that is that you're both entrepreneurs, right? You sell different things and provide value and create value different ways, but we see both sides of this ecosystem as entrepreneurs that are trying to grow. And that's really important for I think you to understand, because our mission at Shopify is actually to take the path towards more entrepreneurs. So I think historically, as the ecosystem has sort of been much larger on the merchant side, but now growing really fast on the partner side, we're starting to break down these walls and really think about all of us at the same side of the table, and us actually serving you as partners trying to build your businesses the same way that we help our merchants build their businesses for the last 11 years. So who are these merchants that we're building for? I wanted to share a bit of the data that we take all of Shopify employees through, especially the product team, so they can start to really understand at least high-level demographic information about who we're building for. So the first thing we take people through is actually a little gut check, a gut check on the perception versus the reality of what a normal Shopify merchant is. So if I was to characterize perception, It's something like this. Actually, yeah, it looks all right. So, a really pristine store, artisanal, beautiful photography. It's just Instagram, basically. And I think that a lot of people see commerce out there because that's what people like to portray, and that's what merchants like to portray about themselves. But the reality is that most of our customers are not this. Most of our customers are actually this, right? It's really hard work. You're grinding in your basement. You're trying to make something out of nothing, and it's messy. And I think that this is the reality of how we think about how to empathize with the people that we're building for, just in Shopify itself, and I think in the partner community as well. This is the normal merchant, actually, if you're going to take the entire expanse of the 500,000 that are on Shopify. Some quick demographic data. So merchants are actually much older than people think, and this is continuing to trend. So the bulk of our user base is actually over 35 years old. The 45-year-old segment is actually growing fastest. We expect it to be the majority by 2020 of Shopify merchants are going to be over 45. Women are the majority of our merchants on Shopify. So we've seen this trend aggressively swing since 2014. Used to be around 42% women on the platform. Today, it's a majority at 53%, and it's still growing. It's really important to internalize. This one's really interesting. We don't talk about it a lot, but merchants actually are, they have different commitment levels to their business. So only 47% of merchants on Shopify are full-time. The majority are actually part-time, and that's really interesting because it speaks to the idea that these are really people that are trying to break out of a 9-to-5 job, trying to build themselves into something more. And of the 53% that are part-time, 34% of the 53% are actually aspiring to be full-time. So they're trying to build it to the point where they can quit their job. And all this data is from the annual merchant surveys that we give out to our ecosystem. Just gives us a good pulse on what our people are thinking. So I think that's important to realize. I think as you work with lots of merchants, is that a lot of them are on their own journey trying to get to a place where they can be a stable, sustainable business. Next, so this probably isn't a surprise here, but 81% of our merchants are in the Anglosphere, although the rest of the world, which comprises 19%, is growing. So we have about 56% in the US today. Actually, the second largest market is the UK. Just fresh numbers I looked at very recently. And it starts to scale down there. So, people in this room and us being in the UK today, I think we're well positioned to capture our existing market and just know that we are growing internationally as well. But this is sort of the demographic data today. The other thing that we train people on is thinking about what the sort of standard journey is for a merchant in Shopify. And this has to be pretty high level because it's across 500,000 merchants. So we think of them as joining Shopify under two conditions, under two streams. So the first is that they have an existing business and they're trying to re-platform or they're trying to get online. And the second is that they want to build a business. So they're purely someone with some ambition, with an idea, and they want to activate that. And actually, these two journeys are a little bit different in terms of what Shopify actually is supposed to mean for them and how even partners will interact with them. So for people that have a business, it's a lot about setting up. What are the features of Shopify? Can it handle my existing operations? It's all around setup and migration. For people aspiring entrepreneurs, it's about, can I develop a brand, a store? How do I get my product designed well and sourced? And for new businesses, it's kind of an additional step, which is, how do I actually find an audience? How do I get my first sale? These are actually extremely difficult problems that existing businesses don't have to deal with as granularly. So they have to think about how to grow their audience, how to reach new people, but they don't have to actually figure out, will anyone want the thing that I dreamed up? And from here, we spend a lot of energy actually finding ways to help people that don't understand marketing, don't understand how to build an audience, find their audience and get their first sale. The first sale in Shopify for a merchant is sort of the equivalent. So at Facebook, they had this goal where as soon as you join Facebook, within 7 days, they want you to get 7 friends. And if they got you 7 friends within 7 days, you'd be a user for life. This is sort of the equivalent in Shopify's world, where from your trial, hopefully, if we can drive you to get a first sale, the motivation flywheel starts happening. We're like, wow, it's what we call the the aha moment internally, where I came up with this idea as an entrepreneur, and it actually resonated with a stranger around the world. And that's incredible. That creates this insane 10x in engagement. They start logging in more. They start doing more marketing activities because they get that motivation. I think everyone in this room knows what that feels like. From here is actually where these two groups start to converge. And it's really around two things. And consistently around marketing and growth. I have a business. How do I continue to grow it? And the other side is around operations. How do I get more time back in my business? How do I reduce my costs? How do I do things more efficiently? And as they work on these activities, they kind of manifest in reporting and analytics as they observe their business and how it's trending and behaving. And then it goes right back into marketing and growth and operations. And this is sort of the cycle that most merchants, after they build a business, tend to stay in. And it never really stops. It's a constant feedback loop of what am I doing out to market? How am I selling? How am I fulfilling those orders? And how is my cost structure? Analyze it, get it back, and improve, right? There are two areas within this journey that merchants fail a lot. They fail a ton here. I can't say the exact number, but a large amount of merchants don't ever make it past this point. They come in with dreams and they just completely fail out. And on the second side, these are just ongoing problems that merchants have as they hit ever-increasing scale. As you go from 10 orders a week to 100 orders to 1,000, you get all these types of complex problems that you wouldn't have had before. Usually around 100 orders a week, merchants start to realize that they can't actually fulfill things themselves, and they have to start looking at warehouses and whatnot. At thousands of orders a week, they realize that they need things like fraud detection and all these things as you get really large scale. Aren't problems when you're smaller, but become problems when you're much larger. These two problems you can see them reflected in what we've built at Shopify. So for the first two, this actually explains the reasons behind two of our kind of latest acquisitions and these are partner ecosystem acquisitions through Kit and Oberlo. Those two acquisitions actually directly relate to these two problems. So Oberlo helps you find products to drop ship from sources predominantly in China, and Kit helps you simplify marketing into a text message. And those were actually very strategic at the time to solve this problem because that's where a lot of merchants drop off. On the other side, you see us making larger platform investments. I mean, we're not going to solve logistics and operations with a feature for merchants, but one of the most important things that we launched this year was the marketing events API, and it sounds sort of, okay, we launched an API, but what this does is it actually it's a foundational layer for Shopify to start modeling multi-attribution orders. So you can see most of marketing today works where the last click gets the order, and then Facebook ads and Google ads all say they did the last click, and then no merchant knows where the hell the order came from. So what we realized at Shopify is that our platforms actually can be the source of that. We host their online stores. We actually see where different marketing campaigns had an effect on the journey. So the marketing events API allows us to show a merchant that, you know what, you bought a Facebook ad on day one, it did work, but the customer didn't buy. Then you actually close them with a Google ad 3 weeks later. So this is a pretty important product for us. It just launched 4 months ago, but more and more partners are starting to get on it, and it really is helping merchants understand the levers of their business. Cool. So this part of the presentation is actually I just whole hog took some slides that I shared internally. And we were really talking about why Partner Platform is so strategically important to Shopify. And I wanted to share that with you. So to understand why it's important, you have to think, you sort of have to understand how we build our product, the actual Shopify admin that we give to our merchants. And our vision around our product is to build a really simple product that's accessible to merchants, but it does what most merchants need most of the time. Since we serve 500,000 merchants, it's impossible for us to build every single feature. So we have to only focus on the things that have high leverage and that are used by most merchants. The other principle is around the idea that Shopify should be the place where a merchant can wake up and operate their business and then go to bed. It's where their core workflows begin and end, even if we're not necessarily the ones that are serving all the data or the ones that build every single app. They should still think of Shopify as that home. Now, unfortunately, this creates a big problem because at 500,000 merchants and growing, we have incredible diversity in our merchant base, and no two merchants, as you all know, are the same. Everyone has a little bit something different about their business, about the brand, about the way they want to engage with customers, about their supply chain. Everything is a little bit unique. And at 500,000 merchants, that's a huge problem. And also the fact that their needs tend to change as they grow. So as I talked about a little bit before, as you scale as a business, you just get more inherent complexity. So that's a big problem for us in Shopify, because if we're going to build a product that most merchants need most of the time, it's very hard for us to actually handle these cases. And that is the fundamental problem that we believe that Partner Platform solves. So whether you're a merchant, then you need Amazon affiliate links on your store because that's where you make a lot of business. Whether you're more established and you need retargeting ads, or whether you need help migrating from a certain platform to another one, which we don't have an app for or whatnot, or whether you need a growth and marketing plan, something that is very hard to do through a product itself. These are the types of things that the ecosystem at large helps us actually solve. And when we interview merchants, they actually don't make the distinction. It's actually really fascinating. They think about, when they ask, how is Shopify, they talk about the apps, they talk about the experts that they work with as part of what Shopify is. And I think that was a really important thing for us to respect and realize, was that to the merchant, they don't actually see the difference. It's one and the same. So our partner platform enables us to solve this at scale. We are at thousands and thousands of apps and partners and growing. We are at 500,000 merchants and growing. This allows just a system and an economy to basically form around the specific needs of specific merchants. And we know it's working, and here's how we know. So this chart is showing the use of apps as a merchant's lifetime progresses. And it's showing every color is a different scale of merchant. So the red line is actually some of our largest merchants selling over 100,000 sales a year, and then all the way down to merchants that haven't even gotten their first sale on the orange line. And what you can see, and the age of their lifetime in Shopify is going across from left to right. So what you can see here is two things. One is that as a merchant ages, they tend to use more apps because their business is getting more complex. They want to save more time. They want to create operational efficiency. On the second side, you see is the larger a merchant gets. So the more that they end up selling, the more apps they actually end up using, the more complex, again, their business gets, where to the effect where our largest merchants are using 20 apps each 3 years into their life in Shopify, and that's pretty remarkable. On the non-app side, so on like the expert side and the value-added partner side, I didn't actually get this slide past legal yet, so I took away the y-axis. But what we can see is even in this year, the number of partners that have at least helped one merchant has doubled in this 1 year, which is pretty incredible. So we know that all the services that a lot of people in this audience provide are really resonating with merchants and really help us grow. Okay, into the fun part. So what to expect from us in the future? Kind of three major things. So we're going to continue to push commerce forward. That's kind of a catch-all for some features. We're just getting started in offline commerce. So this year at Unite, we announced it, but we really built from the ground up our first hardware. And I think that was seen as just a feature, but I want you to interpret it more as a signal to a really long-term investment we're making into retail, into offline commerce. We know we're not the best today, but we also know that we're well-positioned to be one of the best in the future. So if us building our own hardware, even though we weren't a hardware company, is not enough of a signal, like take my word as that signal, you will see a lot more within physical commerce and retail coming forward. Next is around channel platforms. So only 3 months ago, we actually opened it up publicly so that any partner can build their own sales channel, not just like some one-off partnerships that we have with Facebook or Pinterest, but anyone can build a sales channel. And I wanted to highlight one that a partner built and launched just last week that was really, really fascinating. It's called Mothership. And it actually is a sales channel that lets merchants drop ship each other's products. So if I'm merchant A in the UK and I'm merchant B in Canada, I can actually set up a supplier-retailer relationship through this sales channel. So I can actually, if I'm the retailing merchant in Canada, I can just have on my store a link to the products that the UK merchant is selling, and I can sell it on my online store to the end customer. They think it's from me. But as soon as that order comes into the Canadian shop, the order actually routes all the way back to the UK shop, and they fulfill it directly to the customer. So this is really, really fascinating because it's actually like creating an insane network effect across 500,000 merchants, and an app partner built it. And that's what's incredible about our ecosystem. So check it out. They did not pay for this advertisement. I just thought it was a really cool example. The next thing is expect more features that actually tap into network effects around Shopify. So if I was to characterize Shopify's product from sort of like a tech landscape perspective, is for a decade, we've been very much a walled garden. Every merchant has their own version of Shopify. It's purely a white label service. We're starting to actually create more products that leverage the fact that we have 500,000 merchants. In this case, with Shopify Pay, a merchant from store A, if their customer comes in, they can choose to save their credit card information associated with their email and phone number. But what's remarkable is that same customer, if they buy a product on Merchant B's shop that they've never been to, and Merchant B is also on Shopify, they can just check out with their phone number. And that's what we call a network effect, because every single merchant that joins the network makes it better for everyone else. And this is one of those examples, and you can expect more of that. The second theme is around better, more efficient ways for partners to connect with merchants. And I'm super excited to talk about a lot of these things because this is what my team specifically works on. The most important thing I would say to expect in the next 12 months is much, much better data-driven matchmaking between the value that you provide and what our merchants need. So we have put basically a third of my team is working only on machine learning products that are figuring out what merchants actually need at a moment. So I'll give you an example. If we see a merchant going into their online store and they're adding SEO meta tags, we are machine learning on that behavior, and then we kind of know at that moment that's the mode that the merchant's in, right? They're trying to set up their online store to do really well in SEO. So what we're going to do with that information is the next time they log into the App Store, the recommended apps are going to be all SEO apps. And the next time they log into Shopify's admin, they're going to get a card that says, hey, maybe you should install an SEO app because it seems like that's what you're looking for right now. That's just an example. We are basically finding across both apps and expert partners the intersection between the value that you create and what a merchant needs at a given moment. And we're going to use that knowledge to actually surface things way more organically across all of our different marketplaces and within the admin. So the good news is you don't have to do anything. And merchants will actually start to see your value more contextually to them, and it should help with the connections between you and them. We just launched in beta a couple weeks ago the Expert Small Task Marketplace. So if you haven't heard about this, for years we've had, as many of you know, we've had experts as a program and certified in listings of experts. But after doing a lot of merchant research, we recognize that a lot of them don't necessarily think in terms of an agency they'd have never met before. And what they think about instead is actual work that they need to get done. So we see merchants saying, oh, I actually want to just pay someone to look at the way I've set up my online store meta tags to see if it's right. Just can I pay for some advisory? Or I need someone to just set up my domain. And we've sort of inverted the model a bit so that a marketplace is showing the task that a merchant needs. And what happens is after they go into, let's say, set up a Facebook pixel for me, it will start to tender that offer for work out to the partner expert ecosystem. And it's not like experts have to put up a price and automatically agree to it. It actually is just a mechanism for them to create a connection between a merchant and an expert. So this is already live in beta right now. If you're interested in it, let me know after, and we can probably get you in that beta. We're also redesigning the App Store this year, so it's been quite a while. My designer would probably kill me if he knew that I was showing these, but we're really excited about it. It hasn't been a really good experience on mobile. It also hasn't had a really good category tree for which to show the depth of what apps are actually doing. If you click marketing on the App Store, it shows 600 apps. And there's no way a merchant can ever figure out which is the right one for them. So we're really excited about this. It's coming later this year or early next, but that's one of the big bets that we're making in terms of the product. And then for you all, I know we launched a new partner dashboard redesign after Unite, but we are not stopping there. It's not going to be like 5 years before anything changes there. We're really reinvesting in making better reporting for all of you, which we know has been a huge pain point for many, many years. All right, almost done. The last thing is there are a lot of really hard problems that I don't want you to think we're not thinking about, and I actually want to confirm with you that we are absolutely focused on. And these are the really hairy ones that I know you all know. So it's all around everything. So multi-location inventory and fulfillment. There are like 60 people that are only working on this thing 100% every single day, I promise you. Also multi-shop management. We know it's a pain right now. You have to spin up so many different instances of Shopify. And also multi-country commerce in all its different forms. So if you're a merchant working, in a different language and you can't even read the English Shopify admin, that's a huge problem. But then also, if your customers can't even see in their local language what your products are, that's a huge problem. So these are really, really hard problems. They go into the guts of what Shopify's platform does, and it will take time. But know that we know there are huge problems, and we are working on them. Cool. So just a couple quick tidbits, and then I'm done. So if I was just thinking, based on the data, if I had 2 little suggestions for any new Shopify partner, the first would be for app partners, if any of you are in that world, and it's actually to solve a problem for 1% of merchants. And this sounds a bit weird, but 2 things. One is that there are a lot of app partners that I see that are trying to just say, oh, there's 500,000 merchants. What's a thing that I could build for all of them? Because I understand they want to be a really, really big business. What happens though is the market becomes so crowded, and it's impossible for them to compete against 50 other SEO apps. So they waste a lot of energy focusing on trying to do a mass market product. Instead, what I'd recommend is actually to focus on a niche. Find something specific, whether it's a geography or an industry. Talk to merchants, find a niche problem, and build a product that's really good for that problem. Because the cool thing about Shopify is that 1% of merchants is still 5,000 merchants today. And if you're even selling an app for $20 a month, that's $1 million business just there. So that's the most important recommendation I give to anyone thinking about apps is to build on a niche first and do that multiple times over. If you build 10 of those, then you have a really, really big business. The second piece of advice I'd give is to not look away from the incredible communities of merchants that we have. So, and I know this sounds sort of obvious, but the most powerful thing for Shopify for merchants is that they join a community of other merchants who are also trying to succeed. If you go on Facebook, and I know many of you have, and you just type in Shopify in groups, I just did it this morning, there are at least 20 different groups with over 10,000 merchants in them. This is how you learn, and this is how you network and build a client base and all these types of things. Get into your local communities of merchants and hear out their problems and build great things for them. Great. I'd just like to close with just reinforcing that we really are deeply aligned. It's not some marketing speak. Internally, we talk about this ecosystem as being on the same side, solving the same problems for our merchants, and us together sort of really building an economy. So I hope you internalize that today, and thank you for your time.